Hey everyone, welcome to Inner Peace Better Health. I'm your host Avik, and today we have an amazing guest, Brent Phillips. Welcome to the show, Brent.
Excited to be here.
Lovely, lovely. So, dear listeners, Brent is the best selling author and expert in movement feedback holography. Yes. So, let's dive into today's topic, which is very, very great. And it's really unique, I would say. How you can triple out your income by shaking your hands. That's really magic, right? So let's dive into how shaking your hands can triple your income. Welcome to the show again, Brent.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And I want to explain kind of that there is a basis for that claim. I'm not just saying that.
Yeah.
But I want to be clear, it's not just that this is not a process of exercise.
Yeah.
So if you just go randomly shake your hands for,
Hmm.
5 minutes, that's not going to make you rich, right?
Yeah. Yes.
What it really has to do with
Hmm.
is, as you mentioned, the
Hmm.
process of what we call movement feedback holography. And I got into this because I've been through multiple life crises. And one of the worst was, about 17, 18 years ago now, where I had trusted the wrong financial advisor who
Hmm.
turned out to be a criminal.
Hmm.
And not only did he steal all of my money, but he had forged documents and taken loans in my name. And long story short, when I found out about this, I was over $1 million in debt.
Hmm.
And that was just life crushing. And
Yeah.
the only possibility I had to not end up homeless was to declare bankruptcy.
Hmm.
So I did that, and it was funny that but before I declared bankruptcy, I had a life coach I was working with.
Okay.
And he had told me, Brent, if you're
Hmm.
just going to do one thing, you got to
Hmm.
go have this movement session with this guy named Carl.
Hmm.
And I resisted a little bit, but
Okay.
it was the last thing I bought before I went bankrupt. Was I had paid 500 some dollars to have this movement session. And
Oh.
so, long story short, this was back in 2008.
Hmm.
On Monday, I declared bankruptcy. On Tuesday, I
Oh.
had my first movement session with Carl. It was the day after that.
Hmm.
And by Thursday night, I had made over $50,000. And
Wow.
it's like, what happened? Right.
Yes.
And it was crazy because when I had the movement session,
Hmm.
so everyone knows at that point in my life, I had been a full time energy healing practitioner professionally for over 5 years. So it's not like I was brand new to this stuff, right?
Hmm.
I had been to dozens of trainings. I had had hundreds of sessions, read hundreds of books. So I thought I knew what I was doing in terms of meditation, holistic health, things like that, right?
True.
But when I had my first movement session with Carl, it was kind of crazy. I didn't go to his office or his home. He met me down on the beach in
Hmm.
near Venice Beach, California.
Okay.
And so we met on the beach, and he had me rent rollerblades.
Hmm.
And then I spent about, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes
Okay.
rollerblading in circles around the parking lot while he videotaped me.
Oh.
And this seemed kind of crazy, right? I'm like, what does
Hmm.
this have to do with anything, right?
Exactly.
I'm not here to learn to rollerblade. I'm here because, I'm bankrupt and my life sucks, right? I didn't see how a day at the beach was going to fix that.
Hmm.
But then here was the key. After that, we
Hmm.
sat in his car and he played the video,
Okay.
and he basically spent time uh, telling me what he was seeing in my energy.
Oh.
And that there was magic there that I didn't understand at the time.
Hmm.
And so after about an hour of this, we were done and I went home and I was actually upset. And so I called my life coach and I was like, dude, what is wrong with you?
Hmm.
I just went bankrupt and you had me spend my last $500 to have some crazy old guy criticize how I move, right? That doesn't help me. So I was really angry.
Hmm.
And I remember my life coach, his name was Brian. I call Brian. I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? You had me spend all this money on this crazy
Hmm.
old guy who just, watched me rollerblade and kind of ripped me a
Yes.
new one with all the criticism, right? And
Yes.
I remember what Brian said was, he goes, Brent, I get it.
Hmm.
He said, do me a favor, give it 3 weeks.
Okay.
And if nothing shifts or changes in your life within 3 weeks, let me know.
Mm.
And I'll see if I can make this right for you.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, that seemed reasonable, right? So I remember I went to my calendar, marked on my calendar 3 weeks out, called Brian, chew his ass off, right?
Exactly.
And it was crazy. It didn't even take 3 weeks. It didn't even take 3 days.
Mm.
That I met Carl Tuesday afternoon. And by Thursday night, I had this crazy surge in my business like I'd never seen before. And I started making money, and it was the weirdest thing. And it was funny because, again, remember, I was not brand new to this world. I had done a lot of intuitive work, a lot of healing, a lot of things like that, but I didn't understand it at all. It was so different than anything else I had done.
True.
And it took me, like, for example, when I had my first training in energy healing around, 2003, it took me just about 1 year before I was starting to teach it. But when I started working with Carl doing the movement, it took me 6 years to get comfortable before I started to teach it.
Oh.
It was a much steeper learning curve. And so, in case you're wondering, here's what was going on.
Okay.
That when we take this term movement feedback holography, what does that mean, right? Well, the first part is about movement. That the way we move our bodies is a reflection of everything that goes on inside of us. So body language experts are able to tap into just a little piece of this. But every time we move, when we walk, when we drive a car, when we rollerblade, when we shake our hands, it's giving a window into what's happening on the inside.
Yeah.
So it starts with doing physical movements, such as shaking your hands, or rollerblading, or walking on a tightrope, or ice skating. So there's a handful of different movements we can use. But the just doing the movement on its own won't do the trick. I mean, if it did, then all the people rollerblading on Venice Beach would all be millionaires, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not quite that simple. But the movement is the first piece.
True.
The second piece, which is the most critical, is the feedback. That a trained facilitator can look at your movement and read the energy on the inside. They can essentially read the myths and stories that you're using to craft your life. And that was part of the magic that Carl did for me. That he videotaped me doing movements and then watched it and read the energy for me. And that's really where a lot of the magic is.
Yeah.
And we call it holography, hence the term movement feedback holography, because all of us are little holograms.
Yeah.
And every part of you can tell the entire world about every other part of you. So are there examples of holographic systems that people might have heard of? One would be live blood cell analysis, which is a fascinating modality where what they do is they prick your finger and take just one drop of your blood and put it under a microscope.
Okay.
And by analyzing what they see in one drop of your blood, they can learn a lot about the health of your entire body.
Oh.
You can determine nutritional deficiencies, whether someone is overstressed. There's all these things you can learn from it, which is so fascinating. And the reason that works is every drop of your blood is a hologram representing your whole body, all of your health. Similarly, another modality people might have heard of or be familiar with, called iridology. And an iridologist can look and examine the iris of your eye, and same thing, tell you what's going on with your health. They can tell you which of your organs are struggling, if there's a nutritional deficiency, if you need to exercise more, all these things, which again, I think is really fascinating. That all the information about your whole body is contained holographically in your blood, in your iris, and all these different places, right?
Yeah.
And so one of them is movement. And what my late mentor Carl used to say is, how you do anything is how you do everything. So, for example, someone that's really powerful and confident, they're going to be powerful and confident pretty much all the time, aren't they? That's right.
Yeah.
So you watch them go to Starbucks and buy a coffee on a Saturday morning.
Mm.
You can tell, you go, wow, this person's powerful, right? By the way they move their body. You can tell if someone's very timid. And in other words, you can read, my background is in software. I used to be a software engineer. So
Wow.
the way I think of it is by looking at someone's movement, you can read their source code.
True.
You can see the code that's creating what's happening in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so powerful because, again, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And I never would have thought it was real, except I experienced this for myself. Because, my background is in science and engineering, so I'm not the person that just believes everything because someone said so. I got to go try it and understand it and have my own experience first. And it was the craziest thing that I started to make money after I started to do this movement feedback holography. And I also want to be honest, I did not triple my income in an hour. It wasn't that easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it was, then everyone would be doing it.
Exactly.
Right? Just like doing
It's not so
many
easy.
forms of many forms of energy healing, miracles happen.
Mm.
But it's not like a life-changing miracle happens in every session of energy healing across the planet. Of course not.
Very true.
And so for me, it took me about 1.5 years of doing the work.
Wow.
But I was able to not only recover from my bankruptcy, after about 1.5 years, I was making almost 3 times more money than I ever had before. So this is a process that if you're willing to apply it, you can see a lot of results. I would say it's kind of like if you want to lift weights at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody goes for one workout and wakes up the next day all buff and cut looking like a bodybuilder. No,
Exactly.
I mean, that'd be nice, right?
Yeah.
I'd go to that gym, sign me up, right?
Yeah.
I'm there, right? First in the line. But it's a very similar thing
Mhm.
that if you're willing to engage the process, put in the time and the work, you will see some pretty amazing results over time. And that's what I want people to know. Because what I found, because I've been doing energy healing full time for over 20 years now.
Okay.
So I've worked with almost 20,000 different people. I've had, something like 6,000 or 7,000 students come through my trainings.
Mm.
So I've seen it all at this point. And what I found was that the more traditional methods of energy healing can be very effective for some things, for sure. Especially physical and emotional health. I find that it can be quite powerful. But the one area where it doesn't seem to move the needle for most people is what we might call presence or charisma or dropping in or getting into the flow.
Mm.
That seems to be beyond most systems. And what I love about the movement feedback holography I learned was it can work with that.
Yeah.
And the biggest reason you'd want to work with that is that's what makes money. It's that simple.
True.
It's your presence, how powerful people feel you. What Kara would say is it's how connected you are to the space around you. And many of us have had this experience where some celebrities have this,
Yeah.
where you're in a room and they walk in and you feel it even though you don't see them.
Understood.
What's going on there is that's someone that's very connected to the space around them.
Mm.
And so when they enter the room, you feel it.
True.
It would be similar to if I'm sitting in a hot tub and you jump in the hot tub, I'll feel that, won't I?
True.
Of course, right? Because we're connected by the medium of the water.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm in the hot tub, you jump in, the water moves, I notice it, I feel it. Well, the same thing happens in the air and the space around us. It's just a more subtle effect. So when someone's very connected, they're very powerful because when they move their body, they're causing the energy around them to move as well. Similar to if someone jumps in a hot tub, if that makes sense. And the goal of analyzing your movement is to get you back connected into your body and the space around you.
Yeah.
So that the actions you take have results and effects in the world.
Very true.
And that was my experience before I learned this.
Mm.
I was your typical head case. I
Okay.
was smart. I had a lot of education. I worked hard,
Uh-huh.
but things never clicked for me.
Mm.
I never got the big raise. I never got the big job. I never made the great investment. And
True.
what happens is when you live in the mind from the ego, which most people do, it's not your fault. It's how our society trains us.
Great.
When you live in the mind from the ego, you get disconnected from the space, or what my mentor Carl called the quantum field,
Mm-hmm.
and you can exert an enormous amount of effort without getting much result. So if you're working 2 jobs or putting in 60 hours a week at the office and stressed all the time and barely covering your bills, well, that's your problem.
Yeah.
You're putting in all this work, right? Up in the morning, late nights, weekends, always working. And you're not getting big rewards. It's
Mm.
simple that you are disconnected.
Very
And
true.
yes, and what's crazy is I didn't have to change anything about my job or my business to see the increase. That when you learn how to get more in your body, it'll get connected to the space, that quantum field, the divine flow. It's amazing how things come to us.
Exactly.
And of course, the thing that everyone wants is to make more money. I get that, right? Everyone wants more money.
True.
Doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, young, old, where you live. Yeah, everyone wants more money, of course. But what we want to recognize is it starts with small things.
Very true. Yeah.
And, just like if you want to, let's say you wanted to get really strong and bench press 300 pounds. That's a
Yeah.
lot of weight. Is that going to happen the first day? No. You got to lift a smaller weight. Maybe you lift 50 pounds the first day, right? But you keep going back. You keep lifting the weights. You will get stronger over time. You will be
True.
able to move that heavy weight at some point. And the movement work is similar. It's a longer term process. Of course, some people see quick results. I did. Others have, but it's not always that easy. But over time, everyone gets stronger, more connected.
Yeah.
And so if you're willing to engage the process, I think you'll love what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a wonderful complement to other forms of energy healing because it can do things nothing else can.
Exactly.
So, for example, if, I heard that my mother had cancer, I wouldn't put her on rollerblades.
Mm.
I would be doing more traditional healing with her
Yeah.
because that's usually what works really well for physical health.
Very
But
true.
but for confidence, for career, for dating, for investing, for creating that grounding,
Mm.
this is the only thing I found that really works.
Yeah.
And again, if you're willing to apply the process, you will see amazing results.
Mm-hmm.
And what Carl used to say, and he said this when I first met him, again, I was down, it was a Tuesday afternoon in November, down by the beach. There wasn't a lot of people out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, excuse me, are you Carl? And he goes, yes, you must be Brent. I said, yep. And he goes, hey, Brent, are you ready to add a zero to your income?
Yeah.
And I thought he was joking, right? I'm like, haha, that's funny. Good icebreaker, right?
Yeah.
He was serious. Now,
Oh.
did everybody that worked with him start making 10 times more money? Of course not.
Mm-hmm.
Most people didn't stick with it.
True.
But I know people that did. I was actually on the low end. I only tripled my income. But as an example, when I say little things, what I mean is not everyone gets a big home run their first time at bat, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember when I had first started working with Carl, we were going on a retreat together in New England.
Okay.
And it turned out we had booked the same flight. And so I was like, hey, you know what? Why don't we share a ride to the airport? That makes sense, right? So I remember we both lived in LA and we shared a ride to the airport. And we got to go in the security line. And the security line was just insane. It was like, all the way down the terminal and into the next one. I'd never seen such a long security line in my life at an airport.
Mm.
And I remember me and Carl, we got in the back of the line.
Okay.
And I was all stressed out. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to miss our flight. We're going to miss the
Yeah.
first day. This is a disaster, like going right down the rabbit hole, right? And I remember Carl said, Brent, none of that's happened yet.
Mm.
Why don't we just wait and see what occurs?
Yeah.
Maybe the line will move quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was the craziest thing. Less than 5 minutes later,
Mm.
there's a woman in a TSA uniform that walks up to Carl, not to me, but to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And says, "Excuse me, sir, if you'd like, I can take you and your party through the VIP check-in. There's no line there."
Oh.
And Carl was like, "Oh, yes, thank you. That would be wonderful." So she pulled us out of the line. We went through the VIP check-in. And like
Mm.
2 minutes later, we're on the other side, right?
Okay.
And we're walking towards the terminal to get on our flight. And
Mm.
I assumed that Carl must know her because
Uh-huh.
that's not a normal thing that happens, right?
True.
The TSA, they're not that nice most of the time.
Mm.
And I was like, "Hey, Carl, how do you know her? Was she one of your clients? Is she a friend of the family?" Right?
Yeah.
And here's what he said. He said, "Brent, I've never met her before in my life,
Oh.
but things like that happen to me all the time."
Mm.
And what does that mean? What it means is we can all sense, feel, almost smell other people's presence. We are affected by it even if we don't understand it.
True.
And that's what we're building here. And ultimately, for those that are curious, what it comes from is having awareness and consciousness within your body.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what a lot of it is. So some yoga techniques, Pilates, some dance techniques teach something that is similar. And that's why you see a lot of actors in particular and athletes doing yoga and Pilates and dance.
Yeah.
Because it creates that intangible factor.
Mm-hmm.
And it just to give everyone an example of this, you go, "Hey, Brent, what does that mean to have awareness in your body? What does that mean, right?" Well, I'll ask this of everyone listening. Can you take one of your fingers
Mm.
and move it independently of the others?
Mm.
And almost everyone can. That's pretty easy, right?
Mm.
Unless you have serious injuries or some kind of medical condition, almost everyone can move one finger independent of the others,
Mm.
right? Now, take off your shoes and socks and do that with your toes.
Mm.
Almost nobody can do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so here's what it means. Did you know that anatomically our hands and feet are essentially identical? We have
Mm.
pretty much the same bones, tendons, ligaments, etc. in the hands and the feet. Why? Well, we evolved from four-legged ancestors.
Yes.
So the hands and the feet are almost the same anatomically. So there's no hardware reason we're not missing muscles or tissue to move our toes like our fingers.
Yeah.
The difference is all in the software. And so when you can feel a part of your body, you have awareness in it, you can feel it and move it very easily.
Yeah.
When you do not, you can't move it.
True.
And that's why I would challenge anyone listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
Can you wiggle your middle toe and only move it and not the others?
Mm.
Most people cannot. Very few can.
Yeah.
And that's just to show you that's where you've lost awareness in your body.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
And so if you want to make more money, if you want to have a bigger career, if you want to have a more impactful social life, because this is enormously powerful for dating and romance too.
Mm.
Because money and career success and love all come out of the second chakra. It's the same energy center. If you want to have a bigger, more powerful, more potent life, where not only big things go your way, but little things too, because again, most of life is little things, right? You got to learn how to read your energy and get back into your body. And again, just shaking your hands randomly won't do the trick. But you shake your hands with a trained facilitator that can read your energy and tell you what's happening. That can be life-changing.
Right.
And that's why I'm here, just because, again, when I had gotten into this, I'd been doing energy healing and intuitive work, law of attraction for years and years.
Yeah.
I thought I knew it all, right? Then this old crazy guy on the beach had me rollerblade in circles, and it totally changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me 6 years to understand it well enough to teach it. And it took me, 13 years to understand it well enough to write a book. And so I'll let everyone know this is powerful stuff. There is a steep learning curve. In other words, it's not going to make any sense when you first learn it. But if you're called to it, if you really want to make a bigger difference in your life, I'm not sure there's a better path forward. It's really crazy how powerful it is and the benefits we get.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, once you've had this in your life, you're never going to want to go back to not having it, that it's kind of like the internet. Once you get used to using the internet, you never want to go back to not having it, do you?
Yeah.
Right. I feel the same way about this. Once you learn how to get into your body, how to read energy, how to improve and evolve yourself through movement, you're never going to want to go back. But that being said, if you're making enough money, if you're perfectly happy with your relationship and everything else in your life, yeah, you don't need this. I would say, turn this off and go enjoy your amazing life. Good for you, But for everyone else, if you're interested, you can check out my website at awakeningdynamics.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have a YouTube channel with, over 100 videos on it for those that want to go deeper and learn more. And I want to make a special offer to everyone listening that if this calls to you and you check out my website at awakeningdynamics.com and you like what you see, reach out to me. I'm going to offer a free 15-minute one-on-one session with every single person that asks.
Yeah.
So I can get to know you a little bit and answer your questions, because I want to ensure that I'm working with the right people.
Exactly.
I would never want people to spend time and money and energy on something if it's not going to be a good fit.
True.
So I'm willing to talk with everybody one-on-one to get a sense of if you're going to be a good fit.
Mm.
And if not, I'll recommend someone else I think is a better fit for you. And that's a completely free service I provide, because again, I'm looking only to work with the people that are really going to benefit from this. I don't want to spend my time on people that aren't a good fit.
Yeah.
So if you're curious, check it out at awakeningdynamics.com. And if you want to go deeper, I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one. Now, that's as of the time I record this.
Yeah.
I'll just say, hey, if it's 7 years in the future, I can't honor that, right? But for the foreseeable future. So don't wait. Won't last forever. But I'd love to get to know you, love to understand where you're at, where you want to go, and see if I'm the one that can help get you there.
Yeah. That's so lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really, really great. That's really insightful, Brent. Understanding ourselves is definitely the key to making lasting changes. That's really, really true. So, thank you so much, Brent, for sharing your journey with us. Your story is truly inspiring. And for the listeners, remember that take small steps every day towards better health and the inner peace. And if you have enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it with your friends, and let's continue this journey all together. So, thank you so much.